because I really have to... Oh, I'm live? Okay, I should probably not complete that sentence then. Hi! Now that is the exact kind of response I expected to get when I stood on stage. Floor, whatever. So, my name is Zero Chaos. I made a small Linux distribution called pentoo that we're using for the wireless capture the flag, and I'm going to talk about it. I was scheduled to talk about it for an hour, but since none of you will actually care, and we've got a guy who knows what he's talking about for the next talk, we're just going to go ahead and keep this on time, and we're going to get him on the stage so that he can talk and be awesome. Linux is a wonderful thing. Those of you who don't use Linux, stop doing whatever you're doing and start using Linux. Especially if you are in a place like this, seriously. And dude with the Mac who gave me the thumbs up, I'm super sorry for your life choices. Seriously. Yeah, it's not the same. VM's not the same. Okay. We chose pentoo because I was teasing everybody horribly as they were trying to use different other Linux distributions that will remain nameless and failing as all the tools wouldn't work properly. I've spent the last 10 years or so working on pentoo, making sure that the wireless tools work, making sure that the new SDR stuff all works, and I really am actually proud of the release that's on my website right now, so if you all want to try it, that's great. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on talking about how to use the individual tools because we have people that know what they're doing for that, and they'll tell you about, like Russ talked about SDR, and like our good friend Eric's going to talk about 802.11ac stuff, and we've got all kinds of wireless hacking talks for all kinds of protocols and different hardware. It's just my job to make sure that when you go to hack those things, you can just plug it into your box and kind of have a good starting point to do that. All Linux distributions are essentially Linux. I know, it sounds weird, right? But all Linux distributions are essentially Linux. You see, I've got this little X windowy thing, and I got some little tabs at the top, and there's buttons, and then there's my favorite button. It makes the useful part show up, like that. Okay? All of these are essentially the same. They all work essentially the same. This is XFCE for a desktop environment. Some of them are GNOME or KDE. They look different. They all do the same thing. Debian exists for a reason. Ubuntu exists for a reason. Kali Linux exists for a reason because people are trying to make their Linux distribution do what they want it to do. And if you are a competent Linux user and you are happy with whatever you are using and it meets your needs, then that's great. And I am not here to make any converts. I really couldn't possibly care less. If you like what I do, that's great. And otherwise, that's fine. We're using it for the capture the flag because, guess what? It has the ability to win all the flags. Might help a little bit, I don't know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you just some of the features of pentoo that are going to help you out to do these things and give you a really short survey of the tools and all of my embarrassing mistakes so that when you hit it, I don't have to answer the same question 100 times. So 22 minutes and go. Do I still light up when I talk like this? Is this going to work? I'll just project. Okay. Yeah, I apologize. I'm short and I'm going to sit at the keyboard, but I'm not that pretty, so deal with it. As I said before, this is the only part of Linux that I personally find useful. I am a keyboard jockey. My co-developers are keyboard jockeys. So the first and most important thing about pentoo that I want you all to know is we have a menu system. The menu system does not work at all. Thank you, sir. That's a great question. A lot of times when you go in here, you'll think, oh, here's all the Bluetooth tools in pentoo. No, that's a few of the Bluetooth tools, and if you click on some of them, funny things happen, like, did that just try to run a I tried to run a library. That would be embarrassing if I had anything to do with this project. So in general, this will give you a quick idea of what is installed and what is not installed. But 99 times out of 100, if you were to go onto the command line and like type something useful like I want to run GQRX, and you're really lucky, GQRX will actually pop up if you actually have, an SDR plugged in. Right? So all of the tools are installed that are necessary for the CTF, but the menu links kind of are atrocious. Is that out of design to do that? That is out of the fact that I have nobody offering to fix it, so there's that. Okay? So some of the interesting things about pentoo is it is based on the Gentoo distribution. Gentoo is a Linux distribution all centered around compiling everything from source. That means that you will try to install something, and it will take several hours, and then you'll come back and you'll have your tool installed. I know, that sounds really helpful when you're in a penetration test and trying to get stuff done, right? Right. So what we offer is a whole series of binary packages. Pentoo has a fully customizable system to tell you how you want to run the system. Okay? Profile is what controls how your system works for you. We have both default, which is regular Linux, and we have hardened options for Pentoo, where you'll actually have a whole bunch of kernel hardening, compiler hardening, to make sure that tools are far more stable and that they're not so easy to exploit installed. Once you choose whether you want to use the default, which is better for like exploit development, or if you want to use the hardened, which is better for actual red team attacking, so you don't end up part of the victim pool, okay? Once you choose which one of those you want to run, you actually get a choice in the installer whether you want to run the regular profile, where you build things for yourself, the binary profile, where you actually download pre-installed binaries directly from our servers so that you don't have to compile everything for yourself, or if you are really a masochist and you want the absolute bleeding edge of everything. The bleeding edge one will actually compile almost everything on the system straight from the version control system of the upstream project. So you will get GQRX straight from Git. If they made a commit this morning, you will build it and you will get it. But if they made a broken commit this morning, you will build it and you will break it. Okay? That's why it's called bleeding edge and not leading edge. Bleeding edge, you get cut a lot more. Okay? So all of the options are there. You can run it like a normal Gentoo system where you're building things for yourself. You can optimize it. You can, well, just go see, what is it, funroll-loops.info and see all the funny things people make fun of Gentoo for ridiculous C flags, and I have to agree with all of it. Or you can just download from the binary packages that we build for you twice a day, and you'll have the latest of everything twice a day. Okay? That is probably my favorite part of Gentoo, because it gives you these choices, and that's why I have ported that into Pentoo and really, really abused it for that fact. The other thing that is available in here is a full flag system to make sure that you only have the tools that you want to have installed on the system. So what was that? L? That didn't work. There we go. That text is probably too small to read, isn't it? Nope, fairly good. You don't like my font. I don't like it either. That's fine. Pentoo is a series of meta packages. The master meta package is called pentoo. It's from the Pentoo project, and it's the Pentoo meta package. It has what's called use flags on it. These control what features you want versus what features you don't. It's an integral part of the way Gentoo works. If you want to build a system that has no X windows at all, you can do that, and you'll save all kinds of space, and you won't be pulling in Xorg when you try to install Vim, cough, Debian, Red Hat, Ubuntu. Yeah, so you get the idea. The master Pentoo flags control which tool sets you install. So we have things, if you don't do any network scanning, you can drop off the analyzers. If you don't do Bluetooth, you can drop off Bluetooth. If you only do wireless, you can remove all the flags and just put in the Wi-Fi stuff. Each one of these actually controls a separate meta package that has all of the different wireless tools associated with it. So you can see each one of the different tools, and you can pull in just what you need, just what is supported for your system. So for instance, Pentoo Wireless has a couple of different use flags on it. B43 is the Broadcom drivers. It's got some extra fixes to make sure those work. CUDA is the graphical acceleration from NVIDIA to make sure you can do password cracking using that nice, expensive, very hot GPU that chills your battery much faster than it should have. GPS support, if you're going to be doing war driving, things like that, you can leave the GPS tools off if you don't need them. WPE is the wireless PONIsh edition of FreeRadius. If you want to do man in the middle on FreeRadius, then you want the wireless PONIsh edition stuff. If you don't want to do that and you want the Radius server to actually work, then you can just disable that flag and you'll get a Radius server that works, you know, like a Radius server. The point is all of these are in here so that you can customize this to do exactly what you want it to do. You have just the tools you want, configured just the way you want them to work, and everything works for you. Every single default option has binary packages built twice a day. When you change the defaults, you get your system customized the way you want at the small price of however fast your processor is compiling those tools. I build every single package in pentoo twice a day, and my server spends the other time just kind of sitting there chilling. I could do it 4 times a day, but people just don't update stuff that much. So on a regular like i7 processor, you can literally just tell it to build every package in the world. You can fall asleep and it'll be done before you wake up. And if you're really doing that in the middle of a pen test, I again recommend prepping better next time. Okay. The menus definitely are there for mostly the eye candy. Some of these things really do work, but they give you a nice survey of what's installed. A whole bunch of things for mobile devices, reading information off of iPhones, reading information off of Androids. The full Android SDK is installed on here. Python, Perl, GCC. Does anybody still use Ruby? Oh, right, Metasploit. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate that. All of your forensics tools are installed. You can do all kinds of different forensics things. You can read raw disks. You can read raw binaries. We've got multiple different debuggers on here for people that prefer one versus the other. The only thing that I won't do is distribute something that I'm not legally allowed to distribute. I know, that came as a shock to all of you, didn't it? A hacker with some kind of an ethics code. It is entirely unheard of. Okay? Let's see here. What aren't you allowed to distribute that you could be distributing? That's actually a really good question. We've had several people already today talk about Baudline, for instance. It's a program widely used in SDR circles, and it's not open source, and the license says you can download it and use it for free, but you can't redistribute it, which means if I put it on a live CD and give it to you, I'm breaking their licensing terms. There's also some other things that are, say, patented. And the source code is free speech, which means if you go in here and you want to install it, you can. So, for instance, you can just go in and say emerge Baudline.
You gotta move in or move out.
I'm busy. I don't want to move out. If you want to install something like Baudline, it's very simple. You can just say emerge, which is the package manager for Gentoo, and then Baudline, and you can install Baudline. But if I redistribute it, I get into trouble. For those of you that do not live on the command line, some of the other tools actually do work. The ones that aren't in the pentoo menu actually mostly work. So there are things like the porthole portage front end, which is a graphical user interface for portage. So you can update things, you can install things straight from here. So you've got a full list of all the different categories of tools, and then you've got a list of packages in each category that you can grab, and then you can go through and pick and choose whatever you want. Little check boxes, upgrade buttons, and all that stuff that, you know, you Debian and Ubuntu users are used to. Most of us don't like the GUI, and that's just my development team, to be quite honest with you. None of us like GUI stuff. So there's a few things that I want to cover right before I turn this over to a man who can actually talk about interesting stuff. The most important thing to do is emerge sync. If you're on Ubuntu and you do apt-get update, it goes to the Ubuntu servers and it grabs a list of all the freshest packages that you can install. This is the equivalent in pentoo. Emerge sync goes up to the Gentoo servers and the pentoo servers. It asks for the list of packages that can be installed, their versions, their dependencies, those things all get synced down to your system. Once you're done with that, you can install whatever new things you want. You can upgrade whatever new things you want. I could spend hours talking about the esoteric uses of Gentoo on the command line, and I will probably save that for a different audience, but Gentoo is, as of this moment and as of several years ago, the best documented Linux distro out there. A bunch of the other Linux distros actually point to Gentoo Wiki to document how to do things because the Gentoo users install the package, then they have to configure it themselves. I do most of the configuration on my end the way I want it so that the users have something that works a little bit better. But by default, with a Gentoo package, you get the package, then you configure it yourself. So the documentation has to be really top-notch. So just Googling for any of these things that you want to configure, install, how to use Gentoo, how to use pentoo, how to make all this work, all of the documentation is there, and it's really great. So I spend an awful lot of time on this because even if none of you ever use it, me and my team are still going to use it because we think it's the best thing out there. And if you want to play the Capture the Flag, we highly recommend going to pentoo.ch and downloading the RC3 release that I just made about an hour ago. And you can actually have the latest of absolutely everything ready to go and play the Capture the Flag. If you would like to play with your Windows-based tablet, that's great, and I wish you all the best of luck, and I don't think any of us will be able to help you at all. But if you use Pentoo and it's broken and you want to wring me around the neck, I'm right here, so you can throttle me while I try to fix it. Justin, was that a comment from the Peanut Gallery, or are we all set here? All right, so as promised, we're going to have a quick 10-minute recess and do any announcements that we need to do, and then we're going to have our next speaker come on up. So thank you for your time.